The parchment crackles under the dim light, brittle and dry. Genesis 6-4 burns into the screen, letter by agonizing letter. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward. Stop thinking of this as a bedtime story. Forget the Sunday school lessons. This is a forensic report of an ancient, impossible crime. We are tracking entities that defy biological classification. Not fully human, not fully divine. The record is clear. A global flood was intended to wipe the slate clean, to scrub the earth of a corruption that had taken root. Yet, the text refuses to let the matter rest. It insists they returned. This is the case of the Nephilim DNA, a mystery buried under 3 millennia of redaction, theological debate, and calculated silence. The investigation begins here, in the shadows of the text, where the ink still bleeds with the weight of an unsolved transgression. We return to the scene of the breach. Genesis 6-1-2. The sons of God, the Bene Elohim, observe the daughters of man. They do not negotiate. They do not seek consent. They take. Scholars have spent centuries trying to sanitize this moment. They argue these were merely the righteous descendants of Seth, or perhaps ancient tyrants. They want to keep the supernatural at arm's length. But look at the oldest records, the fragments found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. They point to something far more invasive, fallen angels. If we accept this, we are no longer discussing a moral failing. We are documenting a genetic incursion, an interbreeding event that birthed a hybrid species. The Hebrew root, nephal, is the key. It means to fall, yes, but it carries a violent weight. It describes those who fall upon their prey with predatory force. These were the mighty men of old, the men of renown, built from a biological blueprint that did not belong on this earth. Then came the deluge. The sky tore open, and the earth dissolved into a churning gray abyss. God commanded the waters to rise, to scour the world clean of the hybrid corruption. For 40 days, the rain hammered the surface, erasing cities, monuments, and the very memory of the giants. We assume the threat was neutralized. We assume the slate was wiped clean, leaving only the descendants of Noah to repopulate a sanitized earth. It is a comforting conclusion, a narrative of total purification, but the text does not allow for such comfort. It adds 2 words that shatter the entire premise, and also afterward. These 3 syllables act like a crack in a dam. They imply that the flood was not the final word. They suggest that the biological contamination possessed a resilience that water could not extinguish. But the shadow of the Nephilim remained, woven into the very fabric of the post-flood world, proving that the catastrophe had failed to erase the crime. Centuries pass in silence, but the silence is a lie. We jump to the borders of Canaan. Moses commands 12 scouts to cross the threshold and map the land promised to his people. They move with the confidence of a nation led by divine decree. They expect resistance, perhaps even war, but they are not prepared for what waits in the shadows of the walled cities. The scouts return, not with maps, but with terror etched into their faces. They speak of a land that devours its inhabitants. They describe the sons of Anak, the towering descendants of the Nephilim. The scouts do not talk about strategy, they talk about scale. They recount standing before these entities and feeling like grasshoppers, insignificant, fragile, and entirely at the mercy of a predator. The giants have returned, and they have reclaimed the earth. The dread is absolute. The threat has not been erased, it has been waiting. The Scouts' report forces us to ask the question that theology avoids. If the deluge was a global reset, how did the giants return? We are left with 3 disturbing possibilities. Perhaps the flood was merely regional, leaving pockets of the old world untouched. Perhaps a second, later incursion occurred, a new descent of the Watchers into a world already reeling. But there is a third, far more lethal explanation. We must consider the possibility that the corruption was not left outside the hull of the Ark. We must consider that the DNA persisted within it. This is the bloodline theory. It suggests that the Nephilim trait was a recessive, dormant code carried through the blood of Noah's own family. Think of the implications. The very vessel meant to preserve humanity may have also acted as the carrier for the infection. If this is true, the flood did not fail to destroy the giants. It simply transported them to the new world, shielded by the very man chosen to save it. The giants were not invaders from the outside. They were the ghosts in the machine, waiting for the right generation to manifest. The horror is not in the water, but in the blood. To understand the true scale of this atrocity, we must look at the documents the church chose to bury. The Book of Enoch was excluded from the canon for a reason. It does not offer a sanitized theological debate. It provides a forensic account of a world being consumed from the inside out. According to these forbidden pages, the giants were not merely rulers. They were an insatiable plague. They stripped the earth of its resources, harvesting every grain, every animal, and every drop of water until the land itself withered. When the natural world could no longer sustain their appetites, they turned their gaze toward humanity. The text describes a descent into absolute depravity. They began to consume the flesh of men. It was a systematic harvest of the living. The giants did not just kill, they treated the population as a food source, a commodity to be slaughtered and devoured to fuel their own unnatural growth. This was not a war of conquest. It was an act of total ecological and biological predation. The records detail a world where the sun set on a civilization and rose on a slaughterhouse. By silencing Enoch, the truth remains. A world that was not just conquered, but eaten. We must move past the theology and look at the physical remnants left in the wake of these giants. The Old Testament is not merely a book of faith. It is a ledger of encounters with beings that defy our understanding of human scale. Consider King Og of Bashan. The text records his bed as 13 feet in length and 6 feet in width. This is not a metaphor for power or a poetic exaggeration. It is a measurement of a physical object, a piece of furniture built to accommodate a frame that no normal human could possess. When the Israelites encountered the Rephaim, they were not facing ghosts. They were facing a race of giants that occupied the land, a people so physically imposing that the scouts felt like insects beneath their feet. The Zamzumim, the Emim, the Anakim, these are not names of mythic creatures, but labels for distinct, massive populations that held territory. These beings left behind cities, fortifications, and tools that required strength far beyond the capacity of the average man. We are talking about a biological reality that the ancient world could not ignore. They were tangible, they were lethal, and they were present in the same geography as the ancestors of our own history. The trail of the giants does not end in the ancient world. It leaps across millennia, surfacing in the 19th century, with a persistence that defies coincidence. Newspapers of the era were saturated with reports from across the American landscape. Farmers digging into mounds, workers clearing land, all unearthing skeletal remains of impossible proportions. These were not vague rumors. They were documented accounts, complete with measurements and local witnesses. Yet, every single discovery followed a predictable trajectory. Within weeks, the bones would vanish. Experts would arrive, declare the findings a hoax, or simply misidentify the remains as animal, effectively scrubbing the record clean. This is where the Smithsonian conspiracy takes root. It is not just about a few misplaced bones. It is about a systemic, institutional refusal to acknowledge a biological anomaly. The pattern is too consistent to be accidental. The evidence was systematically erased. We are left with a cold case. The trail has gone entirely silent. A pre-flood population of hybrids, a post-flood sighting, and a history of deliberate redaction have left us with nothing but shadows. I am not a theologian. I am a storyteller, and the story I have traced is one of erasure. The evidence is gone, lost to the passage of time and the calculated editing of our collective history. We will never hold a Nephilim skull in our hands. We will never stand over a grave that proves their existence beyond a shadow of doubt. The physical proof has been scrubbed from the record, leaving us to navigate the silence. But the questions remain. They are the kind of questions that refuse to die, the kind that haunt the edges of our understanding long after the lights go out. Perhaps the flood failed to erase them entirely. Perhaps the memory of these beings is a warning we have chosen to forget, a cautionary tale buried under the weight of our own modern certainty. We have traded the uncomfortable truth for a sanitized past, and in doing so, we have lost the ability to see what was once standing right in front of us. The case remains open. The evidence is incomplete, but the digging continues. And as long as we keep asking, the giants are never truly gone.